Hello there, you have stumbled upon or re-stumbled upon my channel. This is going to be a classic lit reading diary video. I just really want to get back into reading classic lit for fun again and not so much for school, and just have a really good time. So if you're someone who just wants to read classic literature, wants to do it with a buddy, with a group of people, because there are amazing people in this community. I love you guys so much. That is what this video diary and hopefully the following ones are going to be for. I think that this episode, the first episode of our classic reading, I probably need a better name for it than like classic lit diaries. We'll see, but I think I'm only going to be reading 2 books. Both of these books are for the Game of Tomes book club, so if you want to get even more involved, I host a pretty much primarily classic lit book club with my best friend Carolyn, and we are currently reading David Copperfield and Catcher in the Rye. I'm going to be reading both of these together. I've already got quite a good start in David Copperfield, and by start I mean I'm like halfway through. I am not enjoying this, but for a little bit of background, I have been reading Dickens chronologically for the past 2 years. So I've read The Pickwick Papers, Oliver Twist, Nicholas Nickleby, Dombey and Son, Barnaby Rudge, Martin Chuzzlewit. Actually, I DNF'd that one. I've also read Great Expectations, and now I'm reading David Copperfield. So that's kind of where I'm at with this, and like I said, I'm halfway through. I'm actually not enjoying this book, so I'm hoping that filming this lit vlog, talking a bit more about the characters, I'll try to keep spoilers to absolute minimum, so don't worry about that, but I'm hoping this will kind of reignite some love for David Copperfield. And as of today, I've not yet started Catcher in the Rye. I've never read this before. I'm really excited because this is probably one of the most controversial classics, but I really feel like I'm in the mood. Like reading about a very angry, angsty young boy going through a lot of stuff, because I don't know what to expect. I really don't. I am excited to give it a try. So I'm gonna start page 1. I've been reading David Copperfield 20 pages by 20 pages a day, so I'm already done reading my pages of this for today. We're just gonna dive right into Catcher in the Rye. Thank you for coming along on this journey, and let's read classic literature together. Okay, I'm only 18 pages through and I'm already liking this more than David Copperfield. I was really unsure what I would think of this, because Carolyn, this is one of probably her most least favorite classic. Her least favorite classic. But sometimes we have really different opinions on books, and I'm already really enjoying this. I already feel so bad for Holden. Like, I already feel so bad for Holden Caulfield, and it's been 18 minutes. Just the way that he's speaking, I already feel the pain. I already feel the trauma. I already know, you know? It's hitting me. Holden opens the book and he's like, I just flunked out of like my 3rd school. He's 16 years old at this point. the point he's narrating at, he's only 17 years old, but like just the way that he's speaking, I just feel like I don't know anything about him. I know nothing about Holden. I just feel like he's had to grow up very quickly. I feel like he's very traumatized. I feel like he's very desensitized. He doesn't really have access to that trauma. This is 18 pages in. I don't know. So anyway, he's just told us he's flunked out of like his 4th school because he's failing 4 out of his 5 subjects. I feel like he's someone who has to continually leave things behind, has never really felt deep, true, sincere attachments or relationships. I feel like his parents are probably abusive or neglect him in some way, shape, or form. Could be really wrong. That's just the vibe I'm getting. Like, I was trying to feel some kind of a goodbye. I mean, I've left schools and places I didn't even know I was leaving them. I hate that. I don't care if it's a sad goodbye or a bad goodbye. But when I leave a place, I like to know I'm leaving it. If you don't, you feel even worse. Holden! Yeah, and he's 16, but he's 6'2" and he has gray hair. So, I mean, that's pretty symbolic as well. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of want to keep reading this. I'm kind of hooked. I feel like I've put off Catcher in the Rye like my whole life, but now that I've started reading it, I feel like I'm gonna become obsessed with this a little bit. I don't know, I just already feel so sad for this kid, and only 18 pages have passed, so I feel like that really says something. Today I am 50 pages into Catcher in the Rye, and I'm really liking it. First of all, I don't know, like, all I've heard about Catcher in the Rye, pretty much my whole life, is that people hate Holden Caulfield. They don't like him, they think he's the worst protagonist ever, and a lot of the times people are like, I just hated the book because I hated Holden. I'm 50 pages in, and I don't know what you guys are talking about. Maybe I'll start disliking him, but right now I really don't dislike him at all, and if anything, I just feel sorry for him and kind of actually like him as a character. I think he's really funny. I think he's going through, like I said, so much stuff. We just learned that his younger brother recently passed away. Was it from cancer, I think? Maybe it's because so many people have said that they hate him and they don't like him and that he's the worst, that I'm just like looking for those specks of redemption, because like he is quite tolerant of other people so far, and like he'll give anybody anything that they ask for, do anything for anyone. Sometimes in a way where like he should stand up for himself and like set boundaries. But yeah, so far he's still just at his school. He hasn't left yet, even though, like I said, he's flunked out, and we're meeting his 2 friends, I guess. There was one, I've already laughed as well. I've already laughed out loud, I think 3 times reading Catcher in the Rye, which I was not expecting. Really annoying guy, one of the characters, Ackley, he comes up to Holden, and Holden's just trying to read a book. He's reading out of Africa as well. It's not that he's not intelligent, and it's not that he's like illiterate or not smart or anything, but it's just that the school system really does not work for him, and Ackley's like, what the hell are you reading? Goddamn book. I just really like that, and I'm gonna use that because like I don't know, whenever someone comes up to me and I'm reading and I'm just trying to read in peace and quiet and focus, and they're like, oh my god, what are you reading? What is the name of your book? I just get irritated, so much more so than I probably should. It's definitely been me when people have come up to me and been like, what are you reading? Because I'm like, you don't want to get into it, especially because it feels like they don't really care. Even if you just like show them the title of the book, like the conversation doesn't go anywhere after that. After you tell them what you're reading, and it's just like, why are you even asking? Like, it's a meaningless conversation. So I'm just gonna start saying goddamn book. I just think it's so funny. He's just kind of bopping around, I guess, saying goodbye to his classmates before he leaves. But yeah, we're learning that like he's going through a lot, he's processing a lot, and he's not really spending a lot of time processing it because it's gonna have like minor spoilers, but probably nothing too big. Like I said, his younger brother died. I was only 13 and they were going to have me psychoanalyzed and all because I broke all the windows in the garage. My hand still hurts me once in a while and I can't make a real fist anymore, but outside of that I don't care much. And it's like, well, no, Holden, you really do care. Like, you care so much, but like you're not accessing that part of yourself. Like his brother died and he just smashed all of the windows in the garage of his house. Really, I'm caring about this guy and I'm like not hating him whatsoever. So I guess we'll see as the story progresses what happens, but I'm up to page 50 and I'm really having a good time. I got to page like 570-ish in Dickens as well. I think from like here on out in the vlog, I'm only gonna try to say positive things about David Copperfield because I don't want this to be just like shitting on Dickens and David Copperfield, because like I do really like Dickens, I do love his writing, but for some reason David Copperfield, I'm like so stuffed up, is not doing it for me. So good morning. I am currently almost done Catcher in the Rye. I'm on page 202. I haven't updated you on this in a really long time, but I'm loving this. I'm actually loving this so much. I'm gonna be finishing this today and I'm kind of sad about it. I'm probably not gonna give, I mean, you can't really, there's not too much to spoil on Catcher in the Rye, but I also talk about David Copperfield and I will not be spoiling it. Don't worry, that's not really my intention. Yeah, 202 pages through. So I think I kept saying at the start of this vlog that I was just really feeling sorry for Holden, and then he kind of eventually leaves the school that he's just flunked out to and he goes to New York City and he's just kind of bopping around, calling people, trying to connect with people, trying to connect with friends, because like he can't go home. He can go home. I don't know, it's like Taylor Swift's I can go anywhere I want, just not home. He's flunked out of school and he's waiting for his parents to get the letter before he comes home so they can kind of calm down before he sees them. But it's so sad, and I was really feeling sorry for Holden, and then like he gets to New York City and he starts talking to these women and starts talking about women, and then you start to feel less sorry for him. But on the whole, if those things could just, you know, be mitigated, sorted out, I still do feel really bad for him. I'm really relating to him a lot, and it's just wow, it's really creating a lot of inner turmoil. Also interesting because he does come from a very privileged background. Like, I think his dad's a lawyer. They're pretty well off. Like, they have a very nice house. They live in New York City, and he's been sent around to all these really prestigious schools that he keeps flunking out of, but like he's not happy at all. He starts to live this really, I don't know, you just kind of start to see that he starts to live this really crummy life. He thinks everyone's phony, he thinks everyone's fake, and Catcher in the Rye really gets at like just that angst that you feel as a teenage person, and that can dissolve as you grow older. But I guess, you know, for a lot of people it doesn't, where you just feel like the whole world around you is so fake. People you talk to on the street, and anyone you talk to, you're just like, this is not the real you. I know there is an interior version of yourself inside of yourself that you're not going to let out. You're masking it. You're not really ever yourself when you're with other people. Holden really tries to be authentic, sincere, even as maybe misled in his sincerity as he is, but he feels like everyone else around him is just saying what they expect other people to say, acting according to obviously the standards of society. So it's just, yeah, it's really sad. And like, again, through this all, he's dealing with grief. He says stuff all the time like, I was sort of crying, I don't know why. It's just so funny. Just say things that are so sincere but so funny about people. Like, that guy was about as sensitive as a goddamn toilet seat. All these people he keeps calling, or like he'll be like, oh, I met this person one time, I'm gonna go hang out with him, because like Holden really, he has no friends. He has no one. All these connections are so flimsy, very easily snappable. None of them lead to any ultimate connection between human beings. and then he'll just be wandering alone after one of these connections. He's like, you know what, I forgot how phony this person was. This person's awful. I don't want to be around this person. This person is harassing me. This person is bullying me, blah blah blah. And then he'll say stuff like, New York's terrible when somebody laughs on the street very late at night. You can hear it for miles. It makes you feel so lonesome and depressed. So like in this bubbling, gurgling cesspool of humans in New York City, it's New York City, and he feels destitute. He feels forlorn. He feels alone. Yeah. I have like an ice metaphor, which you know how I feel about ice metaphors. Because he keeps asking people about where did the ducks go in, like, I think it's Central Park Pond. He's like, where did the ducks go? Like, he keeps asking everyone, where did they go all year round? Where did they fly to? But then they start talking about the fish. Holden's like, what do all those fish do when the whole little lake's a solid block of ice, people skating on it and all? They stay right where they are, for Christ's sake. But they can't just ignore the ice. They can't just ignore it. The person he's talking to is like, they live right in the goddamn ice. It's their nature. They get frozen right in one position for the whole winter. And then I have another scene that broke my heart. This is chapter 14, and he's like imagining his brother Ali, who's passed away, and he's reminiscing about how he and his friend as children used to have BB guns and go shoot the BB guns, and he was like, Ali heard us talking about it and he wanted to go and I wouldn't let him. I told him he was a child, so once in a while now, when I get very depressed, I keep saying to him, okay, go home and get your bike and meet me in front of Bobby's house. Hurry up. It wasn't that I didn't used to take him with me when I went somewhere. I did, but that one day I didn't. It's just like so sad because like his brother's dead and he keeps thinking back to that one moment when he was like, you know what, no, I'm going out with my friend. You're not coming. You're just a little kid. And then he keeps going back in his mind, talking out loud to his brother and being like, you know what, you can come with me. It's just, oh. The next sentence after that, you're laughing again. Because he starts talking about the Bible. Take the disciples, for instance. They annoy the hell out of me if you want to know the truth. They were all right after Jesus was dead and all, but while he was alive, they were about as much use to him as a hole in the head. All they did was keep letting him down. So then, one of the last people that he connects with before the end of the book is this girl that he calls up from, I think some school connection. They're all connected to him in various different ways. And they're having a pretty phony conversation. And then just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Holden kind of reaches a boiling point. He's like, did you ever get fed up? Did you ever get scared that everything was going to go lousy unless you did something? I mean, do you like school? And she's like, well, I don't hate it. And then he just talks right over her and he's like, well, I hate it. Boy, do I hate it. But it isn't just that, it's everything. I hate living in New York and all. Taxi cabs and Madison Avenue buses with the drivers and all always yelling at you to go get out at the rear door, and being introduced to phony guys that call the Lunch Angels, and going up and down in elevators when you just want to go outside. And then he just keeps going on. It's full of phonies and all you do is study so that you can learn enough to be smart enough to be able to buy a goddamn Cadillac someday, and you have to keep making believe you give a damn if the football team loses, etc. Yes, speak in my heart. And then he's like, he has this moment where he just kind of lets go and he's like, Sally, let's leave New York right now, come with me to Massachusetts, we'll get a farm, we'll work the land, blah blah blah. I could chop all our own wood in the wintertime at all, and Sally of course is like, what the hell are you saying? I gotta go, like you're being crazy. Overall, I'm loving this. It's breaking my heart. It's so good, and I'm about to finish it up today, so that'll kind of be the Catcher in the Rye. I'm so happy I read this. I was not expecting to like this as much as I am. And then kind of what's going on with David Copperfield. I know I haven't spent as much time in this vlog talking about this one in the Classic Lit Diary, but I'm on page, I'm on page 615. Basically what's going on right now is that David is kind of like jumping back and forth between these two women that he really loves. One of them, Agnes, he's like convinced himself that he loves as a sister only, but that's not true at all, because the other girl that he's with, Dora, he says he's obsessed with Dora, like it's always Dora this, Dora that, but Dora isn't really the greatest person, especially compared to Agnes, so he's just kind of having some internal struggles about that. And then now at the part I'm at, like Dora and Agnes are meeting. I'm just kind of having to suffer through the Uriah Heep sections, if you know who that character is. It's kind of rough. But overall I'm just like I keep saying, I think missing Dickens' writing style that he's had throughout his other books. He describes a lot of the fantastical. It becomes very quirky, very individualistic. He gives a lot of characteristics to buildings and cities, clothing, furniture, houses, like everything, and I'm really missing that in David Copperfield. I feel like there's a lack of that essential playfulness in David Copperfield in terms of the description and characteristics of like inanimate objects. I feel like that just adds such a, like, I don't know, such a sparkly flavor, such a sparkly flavor to Dickens novels. So I'm gonna read a lot more of this and also finish Catcher in the Rye. I just finished Catcher in the Rye. This was so harrowing. Okay, there's gonna be mild spoilers, except not really, except like it's kind of easy-ish to miss, so if you don't want to hear this mildly spoilery discussion, go to this timestamp. But at the beginning of the novel, you know that Holden's writing to someone, and it's not us. Like, it's clear he's been asked a question to write about, you know, something in his life, something that's not going great, because he's like, if you really want to hear about it. And then we learned that, like, even though most of the story takes place in New York City, he's not in New York at the start of his narrative when he's writing it. So like Holden of the present, the narrator Holden, is not in New York, because he's like, my brother's in Hollywood, that isn't too far from this crummy place, and he comes over and visits me practically every weekend. He's going to drive me home when I go home next month. So, and then you get to the end of the book, and that's when you realize that, like, the whole time Holden's been writing down his memories, he's been writing them from a mental hospital. It's like that moment, because I guess you don't really know that at the beginning of the novel, but by the end it's quite clear, especially when you see everything that he's going through and feeling throughout his narrative. Which only takes place over a couple of days, because on the very last page, literally the very last page of the novel, it's like, that's all I'm going to tell you about. I could probably tell you what I did after I went home and how I got sick. A lot of people, especially this one psychoanalyst guy they have here, keeps asking me if I'm going to apply myself when I go back to school next September. And then he talks about how his older brother, DB, drove over here last Saturday, and then his fiance or wife, his girlfriend, went down to the ladies' room, way the hell down in the other wing. He's in a mental hospital. It's pretty clear that he's dealing with the effects of the death of his brother, as well as some other potentially very traumatizing stuff that happened to him. I'm not going to say too much on that front, because it's pretty subtle, but the whole book, especially towards the end, especially after he goes and stays at one of his old teachers' homes, he has symptoms of anxiety, PTSD. It's clear, I don't want to say it's pretty clear he's clinically depressed, but he exhibits so many different signs of depression. He says so throughout the whole novel. That just hit me so hard, because I completely forgot, like, in the month I've been reading this, I completely forgot how the novel started. Throughout the novel, different people that he does, like, hook up with, or like just meets up with, they're like, maybe you should go see a psychoanalyst. And at the end of the novel, like, we learn that he is, you know, probably writing the story down because his doctor told him to go over his memories. Near the end of the novel, there's a lot of, like, very PTSD, very panic attacking moments where he is dealing with a lot of trauma, especially from losing his brother, Ali, who died from cancer. He starts to think that he has cancer. The title, Catcher in the Rye, alludes to this reoccurring dream or fantasy, or just like dream job that he tells his sister that he wants. That's the title because he misremembers a Robert Burns poem. Holden's like, oh, the line is, if a body catch a body coming through the rye, and his sister's like, no, it's if a body meets a body coming through the rye. Oh, I thought it was if a body catch a body. I keep picturing all these little kids playing some game in this big field of rye. Thousands of little kids, and nobody's around, and I'm standing on the edge of some crazy cliff. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. I have to come out from somewhere and catch them. That's all I'd do all day. I'd be the catcher in the rye. I know it's crazy, but that's the only thing I'd really like to be. Yeah. It broke my little heart. It got really hard to read, honestly. I was just like, oh my god. Then you get to the end, and then you kind of realize where the story is actually coming from, and how bad things have actually gotten for him, that he's now been, you know, admitted to a mental hospital. So yeah, it's done. I definitely give this at least 4 stars, maybe 4.5. I want to read this all over again, like now knowing this knowledge, go through it again, because there are some other things in here that I feel like may have happened to Holden, because he admits other things at the end of the novel that are even just awful. So yeah, that's Catcher in the Rye. Oh my god. Really love this. This is fantastic. I don't really know why it has such a bad rap. It's a wonderful piece of literature. It's done. Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna end off this vlog here. I know that this is really not featured David Copperfield, but it's because this vlog is so aligned to like what I'm interested in, what I'm loving, and David Copperfield was none of those things. So I am done. My enjoyment never changed, never went up. What enjoyment? I was liking it in the beginning, and then I just never got connected to it. I was talking about in my wrap-up how Calcifer is like obsessed. There's a lot of bugs. There are a lot of bugs on the balcony right now. He's obsessed with them, so that's who he's yelling at. But yeah, I was talking in my wrap-up about how I just really hate David. I don't like following David. I'm not at all, I don't know, I just didn't feel any emotion towards any of the characters in here. I just didn't really care was the baseline, and that's very unusual for me with Dickens. So I'm a little bit heartbroken about David Copperfield, because I know that this is so many people's favorite, one of their favorite Dickens, some of the most beloved stuff, I guess, is in this book, but I don't get it. I think especially reading it next to Catcher in the Rye, which I loved, I've been thinking about more and more, this really paled in comparison. So yeah, I'm not gonna stop reading Dickens. David Copperfield isn't the one. I love Great Expectations, I love A Christmas Carol, I love Dombey and Son, I even enjoyed stuff like The Pickwick Papers, Oliver Twist, etc. But David Copperfield was not it. There were hardly any quotes that I highlighted. I think I only highlighted 3. There was a scene at the end of the book about, there's actually been a lot of like water talk in Dickens, in Dombey and Son, and in David Copperfield. I'm not going to spoil anything because it's a pretty big climactic moment of the book, but that was kind of the only exciting part left for me at the end of the story, was this thing that happened in the water, which I shan't say any more about because I don't want to spoil this for you if you are thinking of reading it. But yeah, that's David Copperfield. Overall, I would just mostly highly recommend Catcher in the Rye, and I'm heartbroken about that one. So yeah, that is my first classic lit diary reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed. I'm about to start The Brothers Karamazov, which deserves its whole vlog in and of itself. I think I'm going to be reading that Dostoevsky tome. I'm going to try to do it over 2 months, even though The Brothers Karamazov is our pick for May. I'm going to stretch it over May and June, and then June is The Stranger by Camus. So excited about what is to come. I've been waiting to read The Brothers Karamazov for a really long time, so I'll maybe do something similar to what I did with War and Peace. If you want to check out my Tolstoy diaries, maybe it's time for the Dostoevsky diaries. That sounds nice. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope this maybe inspired you to pick up some classic lit, try Catcher in the Rye. Really lovely piece of work, even though it's an arrow in my heart. But thank you so much for being here. I'll see you guys in my next video. Ciao.